All right, everybody. This is R.4 Part 1 Factoring. And there's quite a bit here. There's quite a bit. If you scroll down or look through your workbook, we have quite a bit here. Okay, so first it says find the greatest common factor. A factor is a number that can divide or divide into. A factor is a number that can divide into another number. If you look at the number 12, what are all the numbers that you can divide by 12? And if you're not good at your multiplication tables or dividing and all that, you can use a calculator. If you go 12 divided by 1 is 12. Okay, yeah, we know that. So 12 divided by 1 is 12. So 1 and 12 are factors. Do you see? Because they can both divide into 12 evenly. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 2 and 6 are factors. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So maybe I should do it like this. I think it might be better like this. You can do it like this. 12 is 1 times 12. You could also do 2 times 6 is 12. You could also do 3 times 4 is 12. I think that's everything that multiplies together to get 12. And all you have to do is do 12 divided by 3 and you get 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. 12 divided by 5. No, it gives you a decimal, so you can't do that. 12 divided by 6. 6 times 2. So these are all the factors of 12. These are all the factors of 12. Let's find the factors of 16. 1 times 16. 2 times 8 is 16. 3, 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay. Now let's do 20. 1 times 20 is 20. 2 times 10 is 20. And 3 times 20 divided by 3 is a decimal. No, 20 divided by 4 is 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So these are all the factors. These are all the factors of each number. We're looking for the greatest common factor. What number is in all three? What is the largest number, the greatest number that is in all three?
2.
Look at all.
4.
2 is not the greatest. 4 is the greatest. Do you see? Each one has a 4. You can try 6, but there's no 6 over here. You can try 8. There's no 8 over here. Do you see? 4 is the largest number in all three. So the greatest common factor oftentimes is the GCF. The greatest common factor. The largest number that divides into each one of these is 4. All right. So that's how you find the greatest common factor. You find all the things that, all the factors, all the things that multiply to create that number, and then just pick the largest one in all three of them. I don't know what I just did. I just messed this all up. All right, let's try question 2. Okay, so I'm going to do 12. 12 is 1 times 12. 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 4. Then I'm going to do 28. 1 times 28. Then I do 28 divided by 2. and I get 2 times 14. Do you see 28 divided by 2 is 14? So 2 times 14 is 28. You can put it on your calculator. 28 divided by 3 is a decimal. Doesn't work. 28 divided by 4. Oh, 4 times 7. 28 divided by 4 equals 7. 4 times 7. And I think we have them all. 28 divided by 5. 28 divided by 6 is a decimal. 28 divided by 7. We already have 7. 28 divided by 8, by 9, by 10, by 11, by 12, by 13, by 14 is 2. We already have that. So these are all the factors of 28. 32, 1 times 32. 2 times 16, 32 divided by 2 equals 16. So you can use your calculator. If you don't know the things that multiply together to get 32, do 32 divided by 2. I get 16, so 2 times 16 is 32. 32 divided by 3. I get a decimal, so that doesn't work. 32 divided by 4. Oh, it does. 4 times 8, it equals 8. And I think that's it. 5, 6, 6 doesn't go in the 32, 7, 8. So we're dead once we go back around. And 36, 1 times 36. 36 divided by 2 is 18. 3 times 12 is 36. If you put 36 divided by 3, you get 12. 36 divided by 4, you get 9. By 5, by 6, 6 times 6 is 36. And then we reached it. Do you see, once you reach a number, then the highest number, then it goes down. So we look at what number is in common with all of these. Not 6. I don't see a 6 over here. Not 12. So I'm assuming it's 4 again. Yes. The greatest common factor equals 4 in this problem. So in 3, 56 is 1 times 56. 56 divided by 2 is 28. 2 times 28. 56 divided by 3, I don't think it divides by 3. I know it doesn't. 56 divided by 3 is a decimal. 56 divided by 4 is does divide by 4. 4 times 14. 56 divided by 5, no. Divided by 6, no. 56 divided by 7, oh yes, 7 times 8. So we reached 8, so then we go 8 times 7, so we already have 7 and 8. That's 56. Now we're going to do 32, and I already have 32 up here. 1 times 32, 2 times 16, and 4 times 8. The largest number that divides into both of these is 32 over there? No. Is 16 over there? No. Is 8 over there? Yes. The greatest common factor of these two numbers is 8. That's the greatest common factor. And we're going to actually need this coming up when we do some factoring. So we will be using this. It seems tedious. Don't guess. If you can do it in your head, that's fine. But if not, take your time doing these problems. A lot of people, oh, I don't want to write nothing down. I've had students the entire semester in class not write one thing down, including taking tests. They failed, but they didn't write anything down. Maybe that was their goal. Can I sit in class for 16 weeks, not write anything down, and pass? And the answer to their question was no. All right. Don't forget, stop me if you have any questions. I'll just keep on going. So we already said GCF, the greatest common factor. Now they want us to factor out the GCF. Now, this is important. Factor out means divide. I'm going to just go back to what we've learned already. Distribute. What does distribute mean? Anybody want to tell me what distribute means? It has nothing to do with problem 4, but I just want to know what distribute means.
Is that when you take the outside number of the parentheses and multiply it by the number, each number that's in the parentheses?
Yes. So you see, I have a number outside the parentheses. Distribute means you have to multiply it. Distribute means multiply. 2 times y is 2y. 2 times 3 is 6. Look at this, 2y plus 6, 2y plus 6. Distribute means multiply. Factor means divide. So we're going to do the opposite of distribute. I want to take the greatest common factor out of here, the opposite of distribute. That's what finding the greatest common factor is. So if you look at just the numbers, not the y, but just the numbers, 2 and 6. 2 is 1 times 2, 6 is 1 times 6, and 2 times 3. The greatest common factor, GCF, equals 2. Factor out the common factor. Factor means divide. Divide out 2. So I'm going to divide out 2. When I divide out 2, I'm just going to divide by 2. So this is the GCF. I'm going to divide out 2. When I divide out 2, what I do is I put this 2 out here in front of I create a parentheses and put it out front. 2 divided by 2 is 1y. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Another way of writing 1y is just y. So this is factoring out the GCF. Do you see now if I distribute, I'm right back where I begin. Factoring out is the opposite of distributing. So we're just going to divide by the greatest common factor. Factoring out the greatest common factor. Factoring means divide. And we have this 2 sitting in front. It's the same. These 2 equal each other. I mean, if I went back and distributed it, multiplied it, I'd be right back where I began. So that's what factoring out the GCF. And we're going to do quite a bit of this in here. We're going to do quite a bit. So I just let you know.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why did you leave the 2 outside the parentheses if we already divided it?
Because we divided it out. It's still part of the problem. Do you see? I'm going to divide by 2. These 2 have to equal each other. 2 divided by 2 is 1y. 6 divided by 2 is 3. But these 2 don't equal because I divided by 2. Well, so I put it outside, and now it's 2 times. They have to equal each other. Do you see? Wait, maybe this makes more sense. I'm dividing out a 2. I'm going to bring out a 2. And when I divide by 2, I get this. It's the opposite of distribute. You see, if we distribute, if we multiply, we bring it back in. If we distribute, we bring it back in. If we factor, we take it out, but it still has to be part of the problem because that number is still part of the problem. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, I just wanted to know what happened with that 2.
Yeah, it stays there because these 2, they have to equal each other. It's the same thing. We just divided the 2 out, and now the 2 is sitting out in front, and I can multiply it back in if I need to. Yeah, well, I'll show you. We're going to do quite a bit of this. Okay, so there's more. So, and I'm going to write some steps for factoring out GCF, greatest common factor. Step 1, what number divides into both? Maybe I shouldn't say both terms, all terms. What number divides into 5 and 15? What's the largest number? Anybody?
3.
5.
5. Yeah, 3 doesn't divide into, you see 5 is only 1 times 5. 15 is 1 times 15 or 3 times 5. The largest number in both of these is 5. So we're going to divide out 5. We put the parentheses, we take that 5 out, and we divide it. If I divide the both, I divide these by 5 like this so you can see 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. Now there's more. There's more to factoring. That's why I had step 1. Step 2, also divide out the lowest I hate to say x, but I'm going to say x power. Divide out the lowest x power. So if we look at both of these terms, there's only 2 terms here. What's the lowest x power? It's not a trick question. Which one of these has the lowest x power, and what is it?
15x.
Yeah, it's just x to the 1 power. So we're dividing out x to the 1 power. Okay, you first find the number that divides out into all terms, and then you find the lowest x power. It could be y, it could be z. If there's more than 1 letter, you take both letters out if you can. The lowest x power. So I'm going to divide. Do you see on the outside I have 5x, so I'm putting 5x underneath both of these. 5 divided by 5 is 1. If you remember from yesterday, x squared divided by x, when you divide 2 numbers with the same base, the base stays the same. You subtract the top minus the bottom, and then you get just x to the 1 power. 2 minus 1 is 1 power, and it's just x. So I had x squared on top. I divide it by an x. I have an x left over. You see 2 minus 1 is 1. Here, 1 minus 1 is 0. The x's cancel. So my final answer is 5x, x plus 3. We don't write the 1 in front of the x. We do that. And you can check your work. This is the answer, but you can check it by distributing it. 5x times x plus 3. 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times 3 is a positive 15x, and we're right back where we began. This is checking your work. This is factoring out the greatest common factor. First you look at the number, and then you look at the lowest power x to divide out. Okay. Let's try another one. They progressively get a little harder, a lot harder. So. Number 6. We have 2 terms. They're separated by a plus, the 2 terms. So first I want step 1. 3 is 1 times 3. 6 is 1 times 6, and 2 times 3. The largest number that divides into both of these is, the largest number in both of these is 3. Thank you. So we're going to divide out a 3. What is the lowest power x that we see in both terms? What is the lowest power x?
2.
X squared, exactly. What is the lowest power y?
4.
Y4. So this is I can probably write that a little bit better. So 3 factors out. The lowest power x was x squared. The lowest power y was y4. Do you see? This is what I'm dividing out. So I'm just going to put it underneath so I don't get, so I can divide it out by myself. 3x squared y4, not y5, y4. This is, you know, the bottom. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X squared divided by x squared cancels out. 2 minus 2 is 0. Here we have 5 minus 4. So we just have a y that's left over. That's it. The 3's turned to 1, x squared is turned to 1, and then 5 minus 4, when you divide two numbers with the same base y's, the y stays the same. You subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. Then we're going to do this one. 6 divided by 3 is 2. These two cancel. They're the same. These two cancel. They're the same. This is the answer. That's it. And you can check it. If you want to check it, you can by doing the opposite of factoring. Opposite of factoring is distribute. 3x squared y4 equals 3x squared. Y4 times y1 is y5. 3x squared times 2, 3 times 2 is 6, and then we just have an x squared y4. You see, we're right back where we began at the beginning. So we're just dividing out. Step 1, what's the largest number that divides out? Step 2, the lowest power x divides out, then the lowest power y divides out. Now I have, for problem number 7, I have 3 terms. I have to divide out 3 terms. Let me bring this up a little bit. For number 7, what number divides into all 3 of these terms?
5.
5. And if you're not sure, just do it the way I showed you. 5 is 1 times 5. That's it. 10 is 1 times 5, and 10 is 1 times 10, and 2 times 5. 25 is 1 times 25, and 5 times 5. The largest number in all 3 of these is 5. That's common in all 3. So we're going to take a 5 out. Step 2, what is the lowest power t? What is the lowest power t?
1 T. I mean, just a T.
So you would think so. Here's a T2. Here's T. But there's no T over here. No T. So the lowest power T is no T. So I bring no T out. Okay, there's no T there. You see, if there's no T, if it's not in all 3, you can't take it out. So the lowest power T is no T because it's not in all 3. So the only thing I divide all 3 of these by is 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1 T squared. 10 divided by 5 is a negative 2T. 25 divided by 5 is 5. You don't take a T out or a letter out unless it's in all 3 of them. All righty. Number 8. Can you look? There are 3 terms there. Can you look at that and tell me what is the largest number that divides into all 3?
3.
It is 3. 15 is 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. 12 is 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. 9 is 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. There's a 3 in all of them. There's no 5. There's no 15. 3 is the largest number in all, so I'm going to put a 3 out of here. What is the lowest power W?
W.
Yeah, just W. What is the lowest power X?
Just the X.
No, it's not X. It's no X. Is there an X over here?
Oh, no, that's right.
It has to be. So the lowest power X is no X. It has to be in all 3. What is the lowest power Y? We see a Y variable also. Lowest power Y. No Y. In the last one, there's no Y. In the first one, there's no Y. It has to be in all 3, or we have to say no X, no Y. The only thing that divides out is 3 and W. So I'm going to divide all 3 of these out by 3W, 3W, and 3W. 15 divided by 3 is 5. The W's cancel, and I'm left with X. Negative 12 divided by 3 is a negative 4. The W's cancel, and we're left with a Y. I can't see that. Is that a negative? Yeah. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is a negative 3. The W's cancel, and we're left with a Z. This is the answer. You can only factor out if they're in all 3. Everybody okay with that so far? I mean, there's 2 steps. Step 1, what is the largest number that divides out of each term? Step 2, what is the lowest power X value? And you have to go through all the letters that you see. If there is no X in one of them, you can't divide it out. If there's no Y in one of the terms, you cannot divide it out. It has to be in all terms. And you have to divide out the lowest power of that. Everybody okay? Type in yes or no. I want to see if you guys are awake. And I'm begging you, please do this homework. I know, Matilda. Hang in there. We're actually going to do more. I mean, number 9, they keep on getting a little bit crazier. No, that's okay. It always takes me 2 or 3 times. I know when I went to school, I would ask the teacher the same question 5 times. But I mean, that's why we have the video. You can go back and take a look at it. So we are on question 9. 9 is something we're going to be using a lot also in factoring. Before I do number 9, I want to do this question. 4x big A minus 5 big A. So this is an extra one I want to do, extra. So what is the lowest number that divides into both of these terms? What is the lowest number that divides in both of these terms?
1.
1. Because 1 times 4 and 2 times 2, but 5 is 1 times 5. 5 doesn't go into 4, so it's just 1. What is the lowest power X?
There is no X.
Just say no X. So I don't take X out. What is the lowest power big A?
Just 1.
Yeah, there's a big A to the 1 power. So we're dividing both of these by just big A. When the big A's cancel, so I'm left with 4x, the big A's cancel, and I'm just left with 5. So my answer is big A, 4x minus 5. Okay? So this problem is the same thing. Many people get this confused. Number 9. For number 9, how many terms do I have? How many terms do I have? A lot of people have a hard time with this.
2.
I have two terms. This is a term and this is a term. All terms are multiplying together until you have an add or subtract. This is a parenthesis, so it has to stay together. It's 4 times x times the parentheses minus 5 times the parentheses. Now, look at these two problems. I want you to look at these two problems. This parentheses, it doesn't matter what's in the parentheses. It doesn't matter. I could call it big A. 4x big A minus 5 big A. 4x big A minus 5 big A. It's the same problem. It's the same problem. I'm just calling the parentheses big A. What happens is if you have two terms, there's no number that divides into 4 and 5. We already said that one. There's no x in both. You have to, it's in a parentheses, it's all or nothing. The only thing that's in common is the parentheses. So we're going to divide the parentheses out, the big A. We're dividing the parentheses out. So we're going to take the parentheses and put it in front. When you take the parentheses out, in other words, it's the same thing as 5x minus 3, dividing it by 5x minus 3. When you take it out, you're left with 4x and these cancel, and a minus 5. So the parentheses comes out in front, then you're left with whatever's left over, 4x minus 5. Just like we did here, we divided by big A. It comes out of both, but you only write it down once because then you have to distribute it back in. So the parentheses is the same, so it comes out and there's only one outside. Whatever's left over after we take it out, 4x minus 5 goes into the other parentheses, and there we are. So we're factoring out that parentheses. That's a tough one, but like I said, we've got tons of these to do today. I think there's 34, 35 problems in this section of the workbook. Here we go again. Do you see how many terms do we have? When we look at the terms, we have two separate terms. It's t times the parentheses. See, don't look at the parentheses as 7 minus m. Just call it parentheses. T times parentheses plus s times parentheses. What's the largest, what's the smallest t? This one has no t. What's the smallest s? This one has no s. Oh, but we do have a parentheses that's the same. The smallest parentheses power is just 7 minus m. We're pulling the 7 minus m out. When I divide it out, you know, that's the number in front. When I divide it out, what's left over? The t and the s. And it's a positive s. Do you see, if I would have divided by 7 minus m, whatever I put out, 7 minus m, these cancel. So the t comes out and the s comes out. These cancel. And this is what the answer looks like. Number 11. We have 5x and times parentheses, 6 times parentheses. Look at the 5 and the 6 in front. What's the largest number that divides by these?
1.
1. And the lowest power x, this one has no x. So the parentheses is the only thing that's the same in both. So we're going to factor out the parentheses. When I factor out the parentheses, the only thing left is 5x and a plus 6. right? I mean, if we look at this way, 3x plus 2 times 5x plus 6. Look, 3x plus 2 times this is 5x times 3x plus 2. Then we have a plus sign. 3x times 6 is 6 times 3x plus 2. Do you see? We end up right back where we began. So you can distribute the whole parentheses back into each term. That's checking your work. Okay. Moving on. This is really important stuff, by the way. This you have to use in algebra. You really have to use this a lot. Okay, how many terms do I have?
2.
2 terms. Look at the numbers, 6 and 5. The only thing that factors out, I mean, you can write your parentheses. The only thing that factors out is a 1. You don't have to put the 1 there. Try to factor out an m, but there's no m. There's no m here. When I say m, I mean m by itself. I know there's an m inside the parentheses, but the parentheses is all or nothing. It's glued together. I can't take an m out of there because it's glued together. So the only thing that factors out is 9 minus m. Do you see this? 9 minus m, parentheses, factors out in front. When the parentheses factors out, we're left with 6m plus 5n. And this is the answer. And this is called factoring out the GCF. Factor out the GCF, the greatest common factor. It just so happens the parentheses was the GCF.
Do you have to put the parentheses around the 9m?
Yes.
9 minus m? Okay.
Yes, because it's glued together. It is glued. Yes, you do. If you don't do it, the order of operations messes it up. Remember, do everything in the parentheses. So I don't know what m equals, but we have to do all that inside there first. Yes, you do. And then the second part, we always have a parentheses. You know, when we did a problem up here, wait, let me erase this first. When we did a problem up here, we said, oh, we put a parentheses first and we say, oh, a 5 divided out. That was the only thing that divided out. And then if we divided everything by, a 5 popped out of here. If I divided everything by 5, I ended up with 1t squared minus 2t. 25 divided by 5 is a minus 5. Do you see this parentheses has to be here? But since only one thing popped out, you don't have to put a parentheses around it unless the entire parentheses pops out. If you want to, you can actually put a parentheses around it. It doesn't change it. It's still multiplying together. But when one thing pops out or an x and a y with it, you don't. When you have an add or subtract, that whole parentheses factors out, you have to have that whole parentheses because the parentheses has to come out also. All right, so now we're going to do our first real factoring. And somebody count the number of terms for 13. How many terms do we have? How many terms are there for number 13?
4.
There are 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Terms are separated by a plus or minus. We have 4 terms there. Okay, so I'm going to call this the factoring 4-term method. Anytime you have 4 terms, you have to factor using this method. This is the 4-term factoring method. It's also called factor by grouping. So the 4-term method is called factor by grouping. And here's that. So I'm going to write the steps down first. Maybe I'm going to write the steps down while I do the problem. Step number 1, put a parentheses around first 2 terms and second 2 terms. There must be a plus sign between them. There must be plus sign between them. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a parentheses around the first 2 terms. And would you agree that 8 is positive? Right? The plus in front of it is the sign for the 8 also. So if I group this, my 8 is still positive in that parentheses. It's still positive. And so there is a plus sign between the 2 groups. Do you see that? There is a plus sign between the 2 groups. And I'm going to show you later on what happens when there's a negative there. So that's step 1. Step 2, factor out the GCF of each parentheses. Look at just the first parentheses. What factors out? Can somebody just tell me at this one first parentheses, what fact, I got to divide something out of there. What factors out?
Nothing or 1.
There's no 1. 1 factors out. She just said 1 because they both have a 1 in front of them, by the way. I'm going to erase that, but we all know there's an invisible 1 in front of it. You can put a 1 there. But doesn't something else factor out?
R squared.
R squared. What is the step 2 for factoring the GCF? What is the lowest power R? And it's an R squared. So when we say 1R squared, it's the same thing as saying R squared. So I'm not going to put the 1 there. Do you see how an R squared divides into both of these? R3 divided by R squared, 3 minus 2 is R to the 1 power. Now here, they cancel, but you can't leave it blank. I mean, when we had other stuff, we brought it down. If there's nothing else there and they cancel, 6 divided by 6 equals 1. 9 divided by 9 equals 1. 12 divided by 12 equals 1. R2 divided by R2 equals 1. When they cancel out, it equals 1. Okay, so for the next part, we got to factor out what factors out of the second parentheses. What is the largest number that divides into both of these in the second parentheses that we can divide out?
8.
8, right? 1 times 8 is 8, and 1 times 8 is 8. 8 is the largest number in both. And 8 factors out. What about an R? Does an R factor out? Yes or no?
No.
No R in this one. So an R does not factor out. So I divide both of these by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1R. And over here, 8 divided by 8 is 1. So this is really important when you factor out the GCF of each parentheses. This is important. The parentheses must be identical, or you can't continue. Do you see how my parentheses is exactly the same, r plus 1? If you factor 4 terms and they're not the same, you can't continue. You're done. It doesn't factor. You might want to try to rearrange the numbers or letters and stuff again, but it should always be the same, or you can't factor. Step 3 is factor out the parentheses. Do you see? I have 2 terms here, and I am going to factor out the parentheses. I'm going to divide out the parentheses. Here's my parentheses are starting, and I'm going to divide out the r plus 1. The r plus 1 is going to go in front. When I factor out the r plus 1, I'm left with r squared, and I'm left with a plus 8. This is the factor by grouping.
I have a question really quickly.
Yes.
At the top where there's the r to the 3rd power, and
Yes.
you divide it by r to the 2nd, so
Yes.
why didn't that become 1, or does it just equals r?
It did.
Oh, you just
no.
Okay.
It came up to 1 r, right? R3 divided by R2. Remember, when you divide 2 numbers with the same base, the base stays the same, and you subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. But it's the 1 is invisible, so we don't write it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, right? The same way, there's so many invisibles. There's an invisible, there's so many invisible things in algebra, it drives students crazy. There's an invisible 1 here, and there's an invisible 1 there. But we don't normally put it there when there's an invisible 1. Yeah, that's R. Once again, invisible 1, invisible 1. We factor the r plus 1 out. So there, I mean, we put the r there, but that there is an r1 there. All right, so this is factor 4 terms by grouping. I really recommend writing these steps down if you haven't done it. I'll give you a minute if you haven't done it, because every time you see 4 terms, you're gonna factor by grouping, and the 4 terms gives it away. Yeah, I think we have like 4 different methods. I have a factoring video, I think, that I'm gonna post later on. All right. Anybody need some more time writing this out, or can I continue? Yell at me if you want more time writing this. I'm hoping you guys are writing this. I hope you're just not gonna sit here for 5 weeks and do nothing. It's gonna be a terrible 5 weeks then, because you may have to repeat it. Every semester, half the class fails this class. I'll just let you know, a good 50%, because it's hard to stay focused for 16 weeks. It is really hard to stay focused for 16 weeks. We only have 5, so I have to keep you focused for 5 weeks. Oh, I know that, Matilda. If you've been out of school for a while, it's tough getting back in. And then I'm sure you got a family that's in the background, needs this and needs that, or, oh, I know how it is. It's tough, just finding the quiet time to study. I understand. All right, number 14. I see 4 terms, so I'm going to use the 4-term factoring method called factor by grouping. As soon as I see 4 terms, I'm going to use the 4-term method. If it says factor, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see all terms are separated by a plus or minus? 4 terms, I'm going to use the 4-term factoring method. Step 1 in the 4-term factoring method is group the first 2, group the second 2, make sure there's a plus sign between them. That's step 1. So step 2, look at the first parentheses, just the first parentheses. What can I divide out of the first parentheses? If you look, a 1 and an 8, the largest number that divides into both is 1. What is the lowest power x? I have an x squared and I have an x. So the lowest power x is x. And 1x is just x. Same thing. They mean the same thing. So I'm going to just divide an x out of this first parentheses. If I divide it by x, x squared divided by x is x to the 1 power. X divided by x is 1, and then 8 times 1 is 8. Okay. The next parentheses I'm going to put here. What can I divide out of this next parentheses? Well, there's a 1. The numbers in front is 1. What is the lowest power x in both of these? No x. There's no x in the second term. What is the lowest power y? They both have a y, so I'm factoring out 1y. So instead of factoring out 1y, you're just factoring out y. 1y is y. So if I divide both of these by y, the y's cancel, and I'm just left with x. They cancel and turn into 1. 1 times x is x. Here, this is a y also. The y's cancel, and we have an 8. That's step 2. At the bottom of step 2, I put stars. Your parentheses must be identical. X plus 8, x plus 8. They are. The parentheses are identical. I can continue. Step 3 is factor out the parentheses. We're going to write a parentheses here, and we're going to take the x plus 8 out of it. We're dividing the x plus 8 out. When we take it out, what's left inside is the x and the plus y. This and this is left inside if I take the x plus 8 out. And that's my answer. X plus 8 times x plus y. Factoring using the 4-term method, also known as factor by grouping. Just 3 simple steps. And they're not simple until you practice them a couple of times. They're really not simple until you practice them. Okay. Factor using the 4-term method. I'm going to give you guys a chance to try to do this and see if you come up with the same thing I do. Try number 15 and see if you come up with the same thing I do. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I mean, just look at the steps. Step 1, put a parentheses around the first 2 terms and the second two terms, make sure there's a plus sign between them. Then find the GCF out of each parentheses. That might be the hardest part, the practicing that we really need to do is factoring out, dividing out the GCF. Parentheses around the first two terms and the second two terms. Make sure there's a plus sign between it. Step 2, factor out the GCF. A 1 divides out, and the lowest power R is R. So the only thing that really divides out is an R. You should have an R on the outside of the first one. If I divide both of these by R, R squared divided by R1 is R1, or just R. Here, the R's cancel and turns into 1. Negative 6 times 1 is still negative 6. The second parentheses, the only thing that divides out is a 1. And the lowest power R, oh, there's no R here. So we're not factoring an R out. Lowest power T, oh, a T factors out of each one. So a T divides out of each one of these. So when I divide each by T, I'm left with R. The T's cancel and a minus 6. The parentheses are identical. Once the parentheses are identical, we can go to step 3. If you haven't done step 3 yet, do step 3. Step 3, factor out the parentheses. Once again, this is the material for test number 2. You can already see there's not a lot of calculator work here. This is all manual labor. It's tough. So I have 2 terms. Step 3 is factor out the parentheses. First, we have a parentheses here, and we're going to take the R minus 6 parentheses out of it. When I grab the R minus 6 and take it out, we have an R left over and a plus T left over. Because both of these were taken out. And this is our answer. R minus 6 times R plus T. And if you notice, when you factor it out, there's no plus sign between it. It's multiply because we distribute and we're right back where we began. Actually, when we FOIL, we right back where we began. Watch this. I'm gonna show you. Let me erase this part. Watch this. So this is our answer. And I'm going to check my work now. And I'm going to use distribution, right? The opposite of factoring is distribution. It's 2 terms times 2 terms, so we're going to FOIL it. First, outside, inside, last. R times R is R squared. R times T is a positive RT. Negative 6 times R is negative 6R. That's a T. Negative 6 times t is negative 6t. This should look like our original equation. We have an r squared. It's in a different order, but it's okay. We have a positive RT. We have a positive RT. We have a negative 6r. We have a negative 6r. We have a negative 6t. We have a negative 6t. So when you distribute it back using 2 terms times 2 terms using FOIL, we're right back where we began. Remember, distribute is the opposite of factoring. Factoring is the opposite of distribute. Factoring means we're dividing something out. Distribute means we're multiplying it back in. All right, number 16 is going to change it, just a little change. It just takes us a little spin on what we've been doing. There's a little spin. If you look at all the problems we've had so far in factoring 4 terms, look at the third term. The third term here is positive. The third term here is positive. All the third terms were positive that we've done so far. All the third terms were positive. In number 16, the third term is negative. We have a negative for the third term, okay? So when we have a negative for the third term, there's a little thing you have to do. It's nothing special, but I want to show you. Step 1, 4 terms, you have to use a 4-term factoring method. Step 1, put a parentheses around the first 2 terms. I'm going to rewrite this so it's easier for you to see. 6 minus 2y minus 3p plus yp. So step 1 is put a parentheses around the first 2 terms and put a parentheses around the second 2 terms. If I do this, it would be wrong because the 3 inside this parentheses is positive. But the 3 is supposed to be negative. It's a negative 3p. If there's a negative there, you have to put that negative inside the parentheses. When the third term is negative, you have to put the negative inside the parentheses. The step 1 says, put a parentheses around the first 2 terms, put a parentheses around the second 2 terms, make sure there's a plus sign between it. And we've always had that plus sign and the number was positive inside there. So there's no plus sign between it, so just put one there. I just want to make sure the third term, you have to put that negative in the parentheses. It says make sure there's a plus sign between it. Just put one. Now we're going to factor out the GCF. And if you look, what is the GCF for the first parentheses? What divides out?
2.
A 2. The largest number that divides into 6 and 2 is 2. A 2 divides out. So if I divide both of these by 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1y. But we don't write 1 when we write the y's if the y is there. So we just write negative y. Okay, the next one. What is the largest number? That's negative 3p plus yp. What is the largest number that divides out?
1.
A 1. And then does a y divide out?
No, just the p.
A p divides out. But watch what happens. So if you're writing this down, hopefully some people are taking notes. If you're writing this down, don't write the next part down. I'm going to make a mistake and then I'm going to come back and fix it. She said we're going to divide out a p. I'm going to divide a p out. The p's cancel and I have a -3. Here the p's cancel and I have a y. Are the parentheses the same? Are they identical?
No.
No. This is a +3. This is a -3. They're not the same. So something went wrong. What went wrong was that if the third term is negative, yes, a p divides out. But you have to divide out. If the third term is negative, you have to divide out a negative. And I'm going to erase the plus sign now because we're going to put a minus there. If the third term is negative, if third term negative, you have to divide out a negative. Have to divide out a negative. So I'm going to divide out a negative. We already said, oh, there's a p there. Sorry. We already said we're going to divide a p out. But if the third term is negative, we're going to divide by a negative. So we're dividing by a negative p and we're dividing by a negative p. Sorry. There we go. Negative p and then why my handwriting is so bad with this thing. Okay, -3 divided by a -1 is a positive. Negative divided by negative is a +3. The p's cancel. A positive y divided by a -1, right? 1y divided by a -1. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. The p's cancel and we're just left with the y, 1y. When you divide out a negative, the parentheses are identical again. So the last step, factor out the parentheses. We're going to put a parentheses here, and we're going to factor out the 3 minus y parentheses. We're taking that 3 minus y parentheses out. What's left over? 2 and a minus p. So anytime the third term is negative, you have to factor out a negative. You have to divide by a negative in that second parenthesis. And this is all factoring using the 4-term method. Okay, moving on. We're going to do another one of these. Number 17 is very similar. Do you see how the third term is negative? So we're going to factor 4 terms. Oh, wait, let me look. Okay, yes. Yeah. I want you to get used to, well, we're not going to do that right now. No, we're fine right now. So number 17, the third term is negative. It's 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we use the factoring the 4-term method. I mean, other than GCF, that's the only method we've learned so far, factoring 4 terms. Step 1, put a parentheses around the first 2 terms. Put a parentheses around the second 2 terms. If the third term is negative, the negative has to be in that parentheses. Make sure there's a plus sign between it. So I'm going to write it over here, 15x squared plus 20x. Make sure there's plus sign between it, -12x minus 16. That's step 1. Step 2, factor each parentheses with the GCF. What number divides into 15 and 20? What is the largest number that divides into 15 and 20?
5.
5. Thank you. I am looking at the chat box also. So, and what is the lowest power x that factors out?
Just X.
Just X. There's an X squared and there's an X. Lowest power X is X. So I'm going to divide by 5X each one of these. 15 divided by 5 is 3. X squared divided by X is X to the 1 power. There's a plus between it. 20 divided by 5 is 4, and the X's cancel, so we just have a 4 there. What do I divide out of the second parentheses? What's the largest number?
4.
Say that again.
4.
4, yes. 4 divides out. But if you divide out of 4, you're wrong. But 4 is correct, but 4 is wrong because the third term is negative. You have to factor out a negative 4. If the third term is negative, you have to divide out a negative number. So we're going to divide both of these by negative 4. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3 with an X. Negative 16 divided by negative 4 is a positive 4. Do you see? You have to divide by a negative, and the parentheses are identical. If the parentheses are not identical, you can't continue. We're going to now factor out the parentheses. Here's the parentheses that I'm going to create, but we're going to factor out this 3x plus 4 out of it. When I take that out, I'm left with 5x and a minus 4. There's my answer. Woo. Okay, we're getting some practice in. All right, try number 18 now. Luckily, the third term is positive, so you don't have to divide out a negative. You only divide out a negative in the second parentheses when the third term is negative. The third term is positive, so we're okay. Try number 18 on your own. If you dare, type in your answer into the chat box. Only if you dare. Because you could be wrong and you'll be embarrassed for life. Don't worry. If you're wrong, everything's okay. You can't learn unless you make a mistake. Let's see who's the first one to type in an answer. I wonder how many of you I've lost already. How many are watching TV? Bachelorette. Is Bachelorette on? A lot of people watch that. I'm looking for a new Netflix series to watch. Since I've been home, I think I've watched everything on Netflix. I'm just finishing up Hannibal. I know. I was actually going to ask a little while ago. Anybody got a headache yet? That's why I'm only doing one section today, because the next section, it's another form of factoring. So we have one or two more forms of factoring in this section. Oh, we have an answer. I don't know if it's right, but let's see what we got. Oh, you're so close, Alma. I think you're missing something. You're missing an X somewhere. Oh, you're so close. I think. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But I do see an X missing in there somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where. Have you found your mistake? Yes, the X is next to the 2. I still don't know if you got the right answer. I just knew you were missing an X. We're going to do it, and we're going to find out. Did anybody get anything different? Or did anybody get anything other than Alma? Amanda. Oh, Amanda put the X there. I thought, see, you both started with A. I'm blind. I can barely see. Yes. Okay, so let me, I'll give you, has everybody tried it? I'll give you another couple seconds. It's really important that we get this practice in. Do not wait until Sunday to do this. Stay current. Gets crazy. This is an 8-week course. I keep on thinking this is a 5-week course. This is an 8-week course. I'm teaching 2 5-week courses in the morning, and those are fast. All right, so step 1, put a parentheses around the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. Make sure there's a plus sign between it. Step 2, factor. If you look at 12 and 10, the only thing that divides out of there, the largest number is 2. And you can go through 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times, all that. But out of 12 and 10, 2 factors out. Lowest power X is X. So a 2X divides into both of these. 12 divided by 2 is 6. X2 divided by X1 is just X. Negative 10 divided by 2 is a negative 5. The X's cancel. 18 and 15, if you're not sure, 18 is 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. 15 is 1 times 15, and 3 times 5. The largest number that divides into both of these is 3. So we're going to factor out a 3. And there's no X here, so you cannot factor out an X. So I divide both of these by 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6X. 15 divided by 3, negative 15 divided by a positive 3 is a negative 5. Our parentheses are the same. So we can factor out the parentheses. The 6X minus 5 comes out in front. What's left over? 2X and a plus 3. And that is the answer. Alma almost won 1,000 bonus points, but she forgot the X. Oh, so close to 1,000 bonus points. You would have got 100 in the class and never had to come back to class again. Oh, no. That close, 1X away from getting an A in the class and never having to show up again. Oh, you're so close. I'm kidding, everybody. He was going to give her an A. All right. Oh, we're still doing more. There's still more. Wow, these 4 terms never end. Let me see how many we got. Okay. We got 3 more. I'm not going to do number 19 just for time. I'm going to do number 20. I'm going to do number 20. Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. All right. And I'm not going to do number 21. So this is the last 4-term problem I'm going to do. If you look at it, there are 4 terms here. 33 total questions. Yeah, that's why I'm not doing a second section tonight. I'm going to try to finish by 8, but I don't think so. I think we're we're going to work a little bit past 8. So number 20, put a parenthesis around the first 2 terms. Put a parenthesis around the second 2 terms. Make sure there's a plus sign between it. Since the third term is negative, I have to put it in the parentheses. So I'm going to rewrite it so I have it separated. I like to have separation here. Minus 3mn plus n3. So we put a parentheses. Hang on, my pen's not working. Around the first 2 terms, around the second 2 terms, make sure there's a plus sign between it. Okay, if you look at the first parentheses, a 5 factors out. The lowest power m, I have an M3 and an M2. So a M2, the lowest power m is the M2 that factors out. The lowest power n is no n here. There's no n, so I'm not taking an n out. So I'm going to divide each of these by 5m3. Whatever's on the outside, I'm dividing these by 5m, not m3, m2. And m2 is on the outside. 15 divided by 5 is 3. M3 divided by M2 is m to the 1 power. Negative 5 divided by 5 is a negative 1. The m squares cancel, and we're left with n squared. So a negative 1n squared. And just, if I was you, get used to when you say negative 1n squared, you don't need a 1 in front of a letter, so you just erase it. The negative has to be there, but that 1 is invisible. The next one, third term is negative, so I know I have to factor out a negative. A 3 does not factor out. A 1 factors out. We have 3 and we have a 1. So a 1 factors out, and the lowest power m, there's no m here, but the lowest power n is n. We have an n in both terms. So just a 1n, a negative 1n factors out. So I'm going to divide this by negative n. The n's cancel. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 is a positive 3, and I still have the m. Here, n to the third minus n to the 1. 3 minus 1 is n squared. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. Look at the parentheses. The parentheses are identical. So we're going to factor out the parentheses. The parentheses is 3m minus n squared. When I factor the parentheses out, what's left over is 5m squared minus n. And that's my answer. Factoring 4 terms using factor by grouping. Okay. So hopefully everybody has factoring 4 terms down, or at least the steps. And when you practice, you won't have it down until you practice the homework and you're able to get those answers correct. Let's see what I have next. So we're not going to do number 21. We're done with factoring 4 terms. Now we're going to question 22. It says factor completely. So normally it just says factor. Oh, don't factor it, but don't complete it. Factor it completely. Why doesn't it just say factor? Oh, I'm only going to factor half of it. Okay, so this is factoring. How many terms do I have? I have 3 terms. Thank you, Denise. I have 3 terms now. I can't use a 4-term factoring. I have to factor 3 terms. So this is where are we at? There we go. This is the steps for factoring 3 terms. And it's really important because tomorrow we're going to learn how to factor 3 terms also a different another way, but this is factoring 3 terms when when the number 1 is in front of the x square. Do you see there's an invisible 1 here? This is factoring 3 terms when 1 is in front of the x square. These are the steps. These are the steps. And they're pretty easy. If there was a 3 in front, or a 4, or a 2, or a 9, you cannot use these steps. You can only use these steps if there's an invisible 1 in front of the x square, okay? You can only use these steps when there's an invisible 1 in front of the leading coefficient, the leading term, x square. It could be y square, could be z square, but as long as there's a 1 in front of it, an invisible 1, we're going to use these steps. So step 1. Find all pairs that multiply to equal the last term. I have 3 terms. This is the last one, 6, okay? Find all pairs that multiply together that equal the last term. So 6, I need find all pairs of numbers, maybe I should say pairs of numbers that multiply to get 6. And I'm not even looking at the sign of this 6 yet. I'm not even going to look at that sign yet. Well, actually I am, but not yet. And so all the things that multiply together to get 6 is 1 times 6. And 2 times 3, right? So step 1, find all pairs that multiply together to equal the last term. The last term is 6. So 1 times 6 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6. Step 2, add or subtract 1 pair to equal the middle term. The middle term is a -1. The middle term is -1. So what I'm asking you for step 2 is add or subtract these pairs. I'm erasing the multiply. If I do this, a +6 and a -1, I get 5. That doesn't equal a -1. Let me try -1 and a -6. Well, -1 minus 6 is a -7. That doesn't equal -1. So no matter what I do, I can't get 1 and 6 to add up to 1 if I add or subtract them. I can say, oh, what about a plus and a plus? No, that's 7. So this doesn't work. But look at this. A +2 and a -3. On your calculator, +2 minus 3 equals -1. Do you see a +2 and a -3 does equal -1? And I also want you to check when you multiply these two, your new pair, maybe this should be, let's call this step 3. When you multiply your new pair, it should equal last term. And I'm talking about the signs. The signs should be correct. I already know 2 times 3 is 6. Do you see a positive 2 times a negative 3 equals a negative 6? Or a positive 2 minus 3 equals a negative 1. When you add them, they have to equal the middle term. When you multiply them, they have to equal the last term. So there's only one more step. Write your 2 parentheses, put x and x at the beginning. So this is the last step. Write your parentheses, put x and x at the beginning, right? X times x is x squared. You always put whatever letter that is there at the beginning. And then use your pair. Use your pair in parentheses. In other words, this one's going to be a +2. This one's going to be a -3. Now, if you want to put the -3 first, that's fine. But the 3 has to be a minus and the 2 has to be a plus, because that's how we got a -1 when we added them and multiplied them to get a -6. This is the answer, the factored form, using the factoring 3 terms when the number 1 is in front of the x square, using these 4 steps. And we're going to do this several times. Factoring 3 terms when 1 is in front of the x square. God, I feel sorry for anybody who's going to watch this. This is a long video. I normally break it up in 2 pieces or 2 sections. This is 1 section. All right, I'm going to erase. Let me know if it's okay, if it's not okay to erase. If not, if it is, I am going to erase whatever that I just said. I don't know. All right, I'm going to erase it. I'm going to erase it. All right, number 23. If you notice, I have 3 terms. The number in front of x squared is 1. So I'm factoring it using the 3-term method when the number in front of x squared is 1. Tomorrow we're going to learn how to factor when the number in front of x squared is not 1. But today, when the number in front of x squared is 1, step 1, find all pair that multiply together to equal the last term. 1 times 48. And if you need it, use your calculator. 48 divided by 2 is 2 times 24. 48 divided by 3. 3 times 16 is 48. 48 divided by 4 on my calculator. 48 divided by 4 is 12. 4 times 12 is 48. 48 divided by 5. Oh, no, that's a decimal. 48 divided by 6. 6 times 8 is 48. 48 divided by 7, decimal. 48 divided by 8, I already have it. Once we come around, we have them all. I think we have them all, right? This looks like we have them all. 6 times 8 is 48. Yes, we have them all. Okay, so erase all the multiplications and try to add or subtract one of these pair to get a -1. You have to add or subtract to try to equal the middle term. How do I get a -1 out of one pair? You know, I have to use this pair. I can't mix and match. I have to use one of these pairs to get a -1 when I add or subtract them. 4 minus 12 is a -8. 8 minus 6 is a -2. Is there any way to get a -1 out of one of these pairs? When you add or subtract them? Do you see? I don't see it. Let's go back up a little bit. Factor completely. If the polynomial cannot be factored, if you can't find the pairs to do this, then it's called prime. That means it cannot be factored. This cannot be factored because I can't find a pair that adds or subtracts to equal the middle term, 1. So this cannot be factored. It's prime. We're done. How nice. Question number 24. Step 1, factoring 3 terms. I'm going to use the 3-term method when the number in front of x squared is an invisible 1. 24 is 1 times 24 is 24. 2 times 12 is 24. 24 divided by 3 on my calculator is 3 times 8 is 24. 24 divided by 4. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 divided by 5, no. 24 but divided by 6, I already have a 6 up here. It's 6 times 4. Okay, step 2. Find a pair that adds or subtracts to equal -2. Does one of these pair, when I add or subtract, equal -2?
4 minus 6.
And I'm glad everybody needs to pay attention to what she just said. I don't know who said that. But she said 4 minus 6. What she meant to say was +4 minus 6. So 4 means a +4. But when you do this, I recommend writing the signs down because you need the signs when you go to your final answer. So it's not just 4 minus 6, it's a +4 and a -6. On your calculator, try it out. 4 minus 6 is a -2. And then check it. If I multiply this, a +4 times a -6 equals a -24. When you multiply, it equals this. When you add or subtract them, it equals this. We have the answer. The last step is write 2 parentheses, put an x in front of it, x times x, and then use these pairs, the +4 and the -6. It's so important to bring those exact signs into it. If you wanted to put the -6 first, you could. It doesn't matter the order. X, X, you can put the -6 first and the +4 last, but the 4 has to be positive and the 6 has to be negative for it all work out. Because 4 minus 6 is a -2 when you add them, and a -6 times 4 is a -24. Perfect. All right, let's try another one. Uh-oh, 63. I see the answer already. Step 1, 63 is 1 times 63. 63 divided by 2 is a decimal. 63 divided by 3. 3 times 21 is 63. You can go 63 divided by 3, and it says 21. So 3 times 21 is 63. 63 divided by 4. 63 divided by 5. 63 divided by 6 is a decimal. By 7. 7 times 9 is 63. 63 divided by 7 on my calculator equals 9. 7 times 9 is 63. Those are all the pairs that multiply together to equal 63. boy, they really, they're really trying to trick you. I want you to know this. All right, so I'm going to erase the multiplications. And which one adds or subtracts to equal the middle term, a positive 62? How do I get a positive 62?
Negative 63 and 1.
Be careful. She said positive 1 and a negative 63. Luckily, I don't know who talked. No, it's okay. Put that in your calculator. You get a negative 62. We need to get a positive 62.
Can you do positive 63
Yeah.
minus 1?
Yes, so we're just going to flip the signs. A positive 63 and a negative 1. When I put that in my calculator, I get a positive 62. Okay, so this looks like the only one to give me a positive 62. However, remember the next step says multiply them together. Does it equal the last term? Does negative 1 times positive 63 equal a positive 63?
Yes.
No.
Try it again on your calculator. Negative 1 times positive 63. It equals a negative times a positive is a negative. When you add them, combine them, yes, you get positive 62. But when you multiply a negative 1 times a positive 63, you get a negative 63. It doesn't work. And there's no other combination I can use. So this doesn't work. It's prime. It has to add to equal the middle term, and they have to multiply to equal the last term. You have to watch the signs. You have to watch the signs. So since it doesn't multiply, it multiplies. When you multiply this, it equals negative 63. If I could, it's not letting me write. Negative 63. This is where it's supposed to be when it's multiplied. This is when it's adds or subtracts. And it doesn't equal negative 63. So this problem cannot be factored. It's prime. So be careful about the signs. That's what I say. Always verify everything. If you're not good with signs, always verify everything with your calculator. Question 26. I have 3 terms. The number in front of x squared, or u squared in this case, is 1. 21 is 1 times 21. Also 21 is 3 times 7. When I add, that's it. When I add or subtract one of these, can I get 10? Can I get a negative 10? Right? 21 minus 1 is
3 minus 7.
Yes. If you put negative 3 minus 7 in your calculator, you get negative 10. It equals negative 10. Now, on your calculator, if it's better to look at it this way, multiply negative 3 and negative 7. What do you get?
Positive 21.
Positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. So when we multiply, we do get a positive 21. When we add or subtract our pair, we do get a negative 10. So this is the answer. We write 2 parentheses, but instead of x, you write u. Sometimes on the homework, people will put x and they're going to mark it wrong. You got to use the letter they're using, u. And we're going to use a minus 3, and the other parentheses has a minus 7. It doesn't matter if you put the minus 7 first and the minus 3 after that, but the signs have to be correct for both of them. This is the factored form. Factoring 3 terms when the number in front of x squared equals 1. Okay. even if I wanted to do another section, I don't think I would have enough time. Not even, I'm barely doing this one. I don't know. In the schedule, I mean, somebody told me, yeah, you should be doing 2 sections today. You guys are crazy. This is a lot of information. S squared plus 8x plus 5, 3 terms. I'm going to have you guys try to factor this. First thing you do is find all the things that multiply together to get 15. I'm going to start off and help you out. 1 times 15. Now you do the rest. See if you can factor the whole thing out, and then first person to put the answer down wins a prize. No, I don't have a prize for you. Wins 1 million bonus points. I'm kidding. Let's put your factored answer down. First person who gets it gets bragging rights. Ooh, look at somebody's, wow, Alma, you're fast. Andrea, so you guys are good. Good. Look how fast you guys are. Perfect. Yeah, it was an easy one, but we really have to, you know, you need to practice the easy ones before you get to the hard ones. So this is a really good starter. After watching the teacher do a few, this is a really good one to do and get correct. And then we work our way up. So 1 times 15 and 3 times 5 is 15. What I normally do is then erase the multiplication signs. I have to try to get a positive 8, and sure enough, a plus 3 and a plus 5, when I add 3 and 5 together, I get a positive 8. When I multiply them, 3 times 5, I get a positive 15. So when I multiply, I do get this. When I add or subtract, I do get this. So this is my answer. The plus 3 and a plus 5 is my answer. I just write 2 parentheses and put S in there. My S's look like 5 sometimes. I'll put these little things there. That means that's an S. So I have S plus 3 and S plus 5. And there's my answer. All right. Yeah, that's what usually happens. You guys are going to wake up tomorrow. Well, I know somebody in this class is going to wait till Sunday to try to do all this stuff. And I promise you, if you wait till Sunday to do all this stuff, oh, you are going to be in pain. Oh, what did he say? Then you're going to have to watch this 2-hour video again. Try to do that. I would try to do some work tonight. I know it's tough in the evening. Try to do some of it tonight on the homework. Just see if you can get through some of it. Not even all of it, just some in each section. And then if not, try it tomorrow. You guys don't have jobs, do you? Okay. Okay, so there's something else I haven't mentioned because we haven't had it yet. So look at number 28. Can we use the method we just used to factor this? Can we use it on number 28? And the answer to that is, I was waiting for somebody to say it, no, because we learned how to factor 3 terms when the number in front of x squared is 1. This is 5. So we cannot factor this using the 3-term method when the number is in front of 1. However, put a little star by all your factoring. Always look and try to factor out a GCF, greatest common factor. Always look and try to factor out. That's the first step. This is the first step of all factoring. The first step of all factoring. We haven't had to do it yet, but now I'm going to do it every time I factor a problem. Before I begin, I always look for a GCF. Always. Every single problem. Look at these 3 terms. What number can I divide out of each term?
5.
5. 5 goes into 5, 5 goes into 5, 5 goes into 30. 5 goes into each one. If I divide these by 5, 5 divided by 5 is 1x squared. 5 divided by 5 here is a negative 1x. And negative 30 divided by 5 is a negative 6. Okay? So, always, for every single problem from now on, we're always going to look for a GCF before we even begin. What I'm going to do now is just look at this part. The 5 is going to be part of my answer, but that's just sitting on the side for now. I'm just looking at this part. That's why it always says factor completely. Always look for a GCF first, and now try to use one of your methods, 3-term method, 4-term method. I have 3 terms in this parentheses. I'm going to use the 3-term method when the number in front of x squared is 1, because the number in front of x squared now is an invisible 1. Trying to get it there again. Okay, so we're just going to look at the parentheses inside of it. There's 3 terms. 6 is 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. I want to add and subtract one of these pair to get the middle term. The middle term is a negative 1x, negative 1, the invisible 1. How do I get a negative 1?
Negative 3 plus 2.
Yes, a positive 2 and a negative 3 give me a negative 1. If you're not sure, put it in your calculator. 2 minus 3, enter, it gives you a negative 1. When you multiply these 2 together, 2 times a negative 3, do you get the last term?
Yes.
Yes. A positive 2 times a negative 3 does equal a negative 6. So this part factors to x and a x and a plus 2 and a minus 3. Now, don't forget, there has to be a 5 sitting in front of it. That 5 we divided out earlier has to be part of it also. So once we take the 5 out, then we can factor the 3 terms, and the entire answer, just as it is, has to be typed in. 5 parentheses x plus 2 close parentheses, parentheses x minus 3 close parentheses. So we're always going to look for a GCF now from now on before we factor it any other way. $29. Can anything look for a GCF first? Is there anything that divides into each of these terms? And you could do it like this. 4 is 1 times 4, 2 times 2. 24 is 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8. 4 times 6. 36 is 1 times 36. 2 times 18. 3 times 12. 4 times 9. 6 times 6. The largest number, you really didn't have to go on. The largest number in all three that is in all three is 4. So if you notice, a 4 factors out. 4 divided by 4 is 1x squared. Negative 24 divided by 4 is a negative 6x. And 36 divided by 4 is 9. So I have the 4 in front. I have this parentheses. I'm now going to factor the parentheses. And there's a 1 in front of the x squared. So all the things that multiply together to equal the 9. 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. How do I get a negative 6 when I add or subtract them? It's really important that everybody sees this. And Amanda says negative 3 and negative 3, and she's right. A negative 3 minus 3 on your calculator, a negative 3 minus 3 is a negative 6. If I multiply them, negative 3 times negative 3, I get a positive 9. When I multiply, I get this. When I add or subtract, I get this. So these are my answers. 2 parentheses, an x and an x, a negative 3 and a negative 3. And if you write this down as your answer, you're wrong because you have to add the 4 into it. The 4 has to be in front of it like that. Okay. Good, good, good.
Would the answer still be right if you did x minus 3 squared?
Yes. By the way, another way of writing this is 4. No, because you had to have the 4 in there. But yeah, yes. X minus 3 times x minus 3 is x minus 3 squared. These are the same thing, right? X minus 3 squared means you write it down twice and multiply it. And there's a 4 in front. So they're both the same. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Sometimes the answers for multiple choice will look like this. You got this, but this is the only answer there. You got to realize, oh, this is x minus 3, x minus 3. In other words, it's x minus 3 squared. Thank you for bringing that up. So they both, either one is the correct answer. But if it was multiple choice and this was the only answer, you have to know to pick that because you wouldn't, if they had that, they wouldn't have this one as an answer. All right, hang on. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so they're all about the same. I'm going to, this one I'm not going to do. I just want you to know, I'm going to just, you factor out a 16. And then you factor this out. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that on the side, you can. I'm going to do number 31 now. I'm going to do number 31 because it's a little bit different. It's the same steps and procedures. Everything is the same steps and procedures, but 31, there's just a very small twist to it, nothing special. It's 3 terms, 1, 2, 3. The number in front of x squared is 1, so I'm going to use my steps. The number, last term is 14. 1 times 14, 2 times 7. That's it. That's what 14 is. Which pair will add or subtract to equal the middle term, 9? Amanda, you didn't write the answer down this time. Amanda fell asleep. A +2 and a +7. Do you see? A +2 and a +7 equals a +9 when I add them. Also, a +2 and a +7 when I multiply equals a +14. So these are our answers, a +2 and a +7. But there's a twist. We have XX, we have a +2, and we have a +7. However, we had an X and an X, but there's also a Y square at the end. The X square gives us an X and an X. The Y square, you have to add a Y and a Y to the end. 2y times, if I distribute this, 2y times 7y equals 14y squared. So because there is a letter on the last term, you have to put that down, a square, you have to put that down twice. So this is the answer. This is the final answer that you get. It's a little different because we had this y. And do you see when you multiply these two, you get 2xy. When you add these two, you get 7xy. 2xy and 7xy add up to 9xy. That's why we have that extra letter. If you have the letter on the front and the back, you have to have each letter in the parentheses. Uh-oh, what happened? I must have clicked on something. Where are we? There we go. I hit something by accident. Number 30. I'm not going to do 32. I'm going to do number 33. I'll let you do 33. Let's try to do 33. You guys try to do it. We're almost done. Hang in there. Wake up, Jose. I'm picking on the guy in the class. Don't we have two guys in the class? Let's see. I thought we had one other guy in here. Maybe he's not here today. Oh, Jose responded. Good. At least you're not asleep. But you are watching TV, right? You are playing your Xbox. Oh, that's good. Ooh, Amanda has an answer down already. Wow. And it looks correct. Okay, so 3 terms with 70. I mean, this might take longer for some people. 1 times 70 is 70. 70 divided by 2 is 2 times 35. 70 divided by 3, no. By 4, no. By 5, yes. 5 times, what is that? 5 times 14 is 70. 7 times 10 is 70. So these are all the things that multiply together to get 70. Find a pair that adds or subtracts to equal a -3. And I can look at Amanda's answer and see that she used -10 and +7. 7 minus 10 on my calculator is a -3. When we add it, we do get a -3. When I multiply it, 7 times -10, a +7 times a -10 is a -70 when I multiply it, and that works too. So these are our answers. 2 parentheses, U, and +7 and a -10, but we also have the V's, so just put VV. That's the same answer that Amanda got. I'll give you a second. All right, so I am gonna look at the last prob. Was there? Oh, was that the last problem? Whew. Thanks for sticking with me, guys.